In January of 2019, in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Orlando, Florida, 3 members of the same family were found dead inside their home. It was a triple homicide, and the person responsible was someone who had been living under the same roof, Grant Amato, whose life had already begun to unravel. But what makes this case stand out is how it began, because it didn't start with violence. It started online. Grant Amato was 29, living at home with his family in Chuluota, Florida, a quiet suburban area where nothing ever seems out of place. Before all of this, his life had already started to shift. At one point, he had been working in healthcare. He trained as a nurse, following a similar path as his brother, and for a time, he appeared to be building toward a stable career. He later pursued becoming a nurse anesthetist, a highly specialized role, one that requires precision, discipline, and trust, but he never completed the program. And in 2018, while working at Advent Health Orlando, his career came to an abrupt end. He was terminated after issues involving medication handling, including the anesthetic drug propofol. After that, everything changed. He was no longer working, no longer on the path he had been building, and not long after, he moved back in with his family. What followed was a gradual shift. His routine became smaller, more isolated, more online. With more time alone and fewer responsibilities, he began spending more time on the internet. Grant spent hours watching live webcam streams. That's where he met her, a webcam model based in Bulgaria, thousands of miles away from Florida. At first, it seemed harmless. Conversations, late nights online. But over time, it became an obsession. Grant wasn't just watching anymore. He was sending money, trying to keep the connection alive.
All right, Sylvia, look at me. I am outside going to check the mail. Please, pretty please, send me one of your videos. I don't like buying your stuff. It makes me feel weird. Could you please send me one, though?
The payments escalated quickly, hundreds of dollars, then thousands, sometimes multiple times a day. Investigators later discovered he had sent over $200,000, money that didn't belong to him. It came from his family, their savings, their accounts, their trust, but the situation couldn't stay hidden forever. His family eventually found out. The money, the lies, the extent of what had been happening. And everything changed. The conversations inside the house became tense. The trust started to break. They cut him off financially, and the tension inside the house only grew. By early 2019, everything had escalated. Grant no longer had access to the life he had created online, and investigators believe this was the breaking point. On January 24, 2019, everything came to a stop. Grant's mother was the first victim. She was shot while sitting at her computer. Later, his father returned home, and he was killed as well. Grant then used his father's phone to contact his brother Cody. When Cody arrived home, he too was killed. 3 victims, inside the same house. Investigators later determined the crime scene had been staged, an attempt to make the murders appear like a murder-suicide. The next morning, when Cody failed to show up for work, concern quickly began to grow. A welfare check was requested, and when officers entered the home, they discovered all 3 victims inside. The house was still, quiet, the kind of silence that immediately tells you something isn't right. There were no signs of forced entry, no evidence that anyone had broken in, and one person was missing. Grant. Police quickly began searching for him, and not long after, Grant Amato was located at a nearby hotel and brought in for questioning.
Did you leave the house with your brother Cody looking like that? Or did you leave the house with your father looking like that? Or your mother? Is that how you left your family?
No. Nobody else went into that house.
Who left your family like this? If you were the one that's been depressed, you were the one that owes money, you were the one that got into a confrontation with your father, who did this to your family? If you were trying to defend yourself or something else happened, we need to know now to help you. So tell us what happened, Grant. We're here to listen to you.
Grant, you need the truth. We're here to make this right. You got to tell the truth. It's on the tip of your tongue, my man. I get that.
Did your father go after you and you try to protect yourself?
No, I didn't do any of this.
I'd rather it come from you than have to do it that way. She never held a gun. She didn't have a gun that night. Fact. He never fired a gun. Fact. He never fired a gun. I know he did not shoot your mom. I know he didn't shoot your dad. I know he didn't shoot himself. And I know from video surveillance camera in the neighborhood, nobody else came to that house.
On August 12, 2019, the verdict was delivered. Guilty. 3 counts of first-degree murder. Grant Amato was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
All right. Based upon this case, 2019 CF 337 CFA, the state of Florida versus Grant Amato, you've been found guilty of 3 counts for killing both your mother, your father, and your brother, Margaret Amato, Chad Amato, and Cody Amato. At this point, you've been found guilty by a jury of your peers who have now indicated that you are not to be sentenced to the death penalty. Based upon those circumstances, the court is limited to 1 finding and 1 sentence for you. As to each count, the court would adjudicate you guilty. I would sentence you to life imprisonment without any possibility of parole as to each count. I further would indicate that you are to be released to the Department of Corrections as soon as feasibly possible. And otherwise, sir, just God have mercy on your soul.
Today, Grant Amato remains behind bars, serving life in prison for the murders of his mother, father, and brother. A case that began quietly, with isolation, obsession, and a life slowly falling apart behind closed doors. And by the time anyone realized how far things had gone, it was already too late.